At the time when our relationship was at its best. I broke up with Spencer. I didn't go on to study for the postgraduate degree that we have worked hard to get into together. I also canceled all contact methods. That year, I left without leaving any trace. I didn't leave him any way out. At the concert, the singer on stage said, "Be brave and say goodbye to the past." Some people around were crying loudly. Some were confessing their love. And some were hugging. I also dialed the phone number that had long been an empty number. But just when I was ready to let go of everything, the phone was suddenly connected. Spencer's unruly voice came from the receiver. "Jocelyn, you finally remembered me." Before my brain could react, my fingers subconsciously hung up the phone. After realizing it later for a while, it seemed that I finally woke up. I looked down at the 5-second call time on the screen, and my eyes suddenly began to feel sour. Then, when I raised my hand again, big tears rolled down from the corners of my eyes. I covered my eyes and dared not cry out. But I couldn't control my whole body from trembling. The last time I dialed this number was 3 years ago. When I first arrived abroad, I got sick and had a high fever that wouldn't go down. When my willpower was weakest, I missed him very much. At that time, I was thinking just this once. As long as I can hear his voice. But then a cold female voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hello. A number you dialed is empty. Please check and dial again." In an instant, the phone slipped and fell from the bed. With a bang, a long crack appeared on the screen. Just like me and Spencer. We can never go back to the past. I indulged myself in crying all night. After waking up the next day, I started a new life from then on. I started a life without Spencer in a foreign country. As of today, it has been 3 years since we separated. I was sitting at the concert of my favorite singer. Inexplicably, I dialed that familiar number that I knew by heart again. The first 3 digits are his height. The middle 4 digits are my birthday. The last 4 digits are his birthday. Thinking of the time when our relationship was at its best, I was extremely arrogant because I was spoiled. "Spencer, this number is the witness of our love. You are not allowed to change it in your life. Did you hear me?" He always leaned lazily, with obvious teasing meaning, "Just because you say so. I won't change it. I was just vulnerable to this." I deliberately sat in his arms, stared at him and said, "Of course. Even if we quarrel, we can't cancel it. Even if we break up, we can't." He exerted force with his hand and his face became a bit colder. "Say it again. What can't be done?" While dodging his naughty hand, I giggled. Finally, I leaned forward and kissed him. "I was wrong. We will never break up." Only then did he barely show satisfaction and let out an from his nose. "I won't change it." Then he turned his head and kissed me. The music sounded again, and the concert entered the passionate climax of the second half. I was in a trance and came back to my senses from those deadly memories of the past. When I dialed the number, I said to myself in my heart, "Listen to the sound of a broken heart one more time. Then I will never put myself in the past related to him again." But before I could finish thinking, Spencer's voice came. There was no time to think about why it was an empty number 3 years ago, but was connected 3 years later. Nor was there time to think about what Spencer's words meant. Those sleepless nights. The voice that echoed over and over in my mind finally became a reality. All my body could do was cry. The concert was still going on. I quickly left the venue and trotted all the way to the exit before I stopped in a panic. The phone in my hand was extremely hot. The text message that just came in directly choked my breath. It was a message sent from that familiar phone number, entrance of parking area B. The person on the other end of the text message didn't seem to be in a hurry. It was just like a message sent casually. I hesitated at the door for a long time. Dozens of reasons not to go popped up in my mind. The footsteps that had already been walking towards the intersection turned around again and again. In the end, I still walked towards the parking lot. Those dozens of reasons not to go couldn't compare to the thought of seeing him. Seeing Spencer was too tempting for me. It was something that I could do regardless of the consequences and without considering any priorities. It was an appointment that I would go to even if it ended in being torn apart and parting unhappily again. The black Bentley was parked at the entrance with the hazard lights on. I walked over slowly. As soon as my hand was on the rear door, it didn't move at all. I had to walk to the front. The passenger door opened, and I got in carefully. Until the moment when I was really in the same space with Spencer, the courage that supported me instantly disappeared. He was sitting in the driver's seat with one hand on the steering wheel and a cigarette in his hand. There was no reaction to my arrival. He didn't even give me a glance. Cold, distant, and heartless. After 3 years, meeting my ex unexpectedly, I suddenly realized how hasty and absurd my decision in the past 10 minutes was. I didn't dare to move. My back was stiff and my breathing became shallow. The person I wanted to see was right in front of me, but I was like a little beggar who had been hungry for a long time. At this moment when I saw the magnificent 5-star feast, what arose was endless hesitation to retreat. I shouldn't have come. Regret began to spread in my mind. I had to suppress all my emotions, pinch the palm of my hand hard with my finger, and try my best to look calm. Then I looked at him. Long time no see. He didn't answer me. His gaze still stayed on that cigarette. I withdrew my gaze. The thought of getting out of the car kept popping up. Every minute and every second in the carriage was torture. "Jocelyn, do you regret it?" Spencer suddenly spoke, asking calmly. I subconsciously looked over and met his gaze in the air. There was no emotion in his eyes. It was very different from the teenager who always smiled dudingly at me in my impression. My fingers holding the seat belt were clenched tightly. "I'm sorry." He let out a very sarcastic hum and didn't speak again. I bit my lower lip and remained silent. The next second, the car drove out of the parking lot. At the intersection, the waiting time for the red light was very long. Just then, his phone rang. I took the opportunity to quietly turn around and secretly look at him, thinking I was being covert. He was a bit thinner. His facial features seemed more sharp. When he didn't smile, he always pursed his lips. But that face was still extremely handsome. He said a few words and then hung up. "Address?" I replied after a slow beat. "Shengjing Hotel." Spencer frowned. "Hotel? I just returned to the country this week. I haven't found a house yet. I will move after I start working." He didn't respond again. He didn't even bother to nod in his usual perfunctory way. That air of keeping people at a distance came back again. I looked away and looked out of the window, trying hard to ignore the gap in my heart. We arrived at the hotel parking lot in silence all the way. I took 2 deep breaths and was about to thank him. As soon as I turned my head, he pressed me against the seat head-on. Spencer had unbuckled his seat belt at some point and leaned forward. The distance was so close that I saw my reflection in his amber eyes. I subconsciously swallowed and said in a very low voice, "Spencer, I'll ask you one last time. Do you regret it?" I knew the answer he wanted, but I couldn't give it. I didn't dare to look at him anymore. In the end, I could only close my eyes. After a while, the strong aura around suddenly dissipated. He leaned back to his position, looking a bit dejected as if he had lost strength. "Forget it. You can go." I hurriedly pushed open the car door and bent over to step on the ground. As soon as I stood firm, I heard his voice. "Jocelyn, you have no heart." The car drove away in a cloud of dust. Spencer's appearance overturned the past all at once. It clearly threw all the past in front of me. When I reported for freshman year, I was 2 days late because of something. The counselor helped me complete the enrollment procedures and personally sent me to the military training instructor. Being late for military training was a new thing. The instructor was strict. I had never been good at sports. I was almost always picked out as a negative example every day. After a long time, all the freshmen on half of the playground knew me. "Oh, that little girl who is trained alone every day." Spencer was the temporary person in charge of the boys' failings next door. With just his face. He was extremely popular among the freshmen. Seriously speaking, his popularity was even a bit higher than mine. Oh, that cold and handsome freshman. Until one day, when the instructor was training me to walk in goose steps alone and was called away for a meeting temporarily. I was just about to happily say goodbye to him, when I saw him point with his right hand. Spencer, come over and correct her movements. All the gossipy eyes around focused on us. Spencer was carrying a bottle of water and walked slowly to me. I greeted him first. I know you. Spencer raised his eyebrows and didn't answer. I heard that you are the most handsome in our grade. I originally wanted to get close to him and ask him to go easy on me. But it backfired. Well, I also know you. The one who is the best at walking with the same hand and foot. Poison-tongued handsome guys are not good. I gave up and continued training in silence. Continue. Lift your leg. Don't shake. He shouted a few slogans and suddenly lifted my arm with the bottle. Straighten it. Don't move. My hand began to tremble. But I still bit my lip and didn't make a sound. In an official tone, he said, remember to say if you can't hold on. I was always harsh on myself. Report. I can. As a result. At the moment when he took away the bottle and my hand was free again. The whole world spun in an instant. I successfully fainted from heat stroke. I fell into the arms of Spencer, who was caught off guard. There are always a few unforgettable moments in one's life. I always remember the way Spencer was sitting quietly beside the hospital bed looking at the drug instructions when I woke up in the infirmary that day. Thin lips. High nose. Long eyes. His side profile was as beautiful as a little prince. I blinked and didn't make a sound for a moment. I just looked at him motionlessly for a while. Until he looked up and his voice was low and gentle. Are you awake? I nodded. Not only was I awake, the little deer that had been quiet for 18 years in my heart also woke up. For during the military training the next day, the instructor specifically took care of me a few words. I explained that it was just a mild allergy to ultraviolet rays. As long as I wasn't exposed to the sun for a long time, it would be fine. The phalanx where Spencer was gathering. Their instructor always loved to joke. Hearing the commotion, he also turned around and his voice was very loud. It seems that it wasn't little Sue who made you faint during training. So he doesn't need to be responsible. There were sounds around. I looked at Spencer in the crowd. He was lowering his head and putting on his hat, completely looking like an outsider. I had to take back my gaze. I licked my lips and was extremely. Look at what you said. I fainted in front of him after all. There should be some care from classmates. Then I shouted in Spencer's direction, Spencer. Thank you. The sounds grew louder. Spencer gave me a look from afar and quickly took it back. But the ear that was exposed when he lowered his head was instantly dyed red. I grinned, feeling extremely good. After military training ended, I had only 2 tasks experiencing college life and chasing Spencer. In freshman year, just experience it casually. The focus is still on chasing Spencer. By the way, asking him to pick up a book, help collect express deliveries, occasionally bring me a meal, and help with group assignments. He probably felt a lot of responsibility for my fainting that day. He could meet 8 or 9 out of 10 of my requests. In this muddled way, 2 or 3 months passed. On the winter solstice, I cooked dumplings with my roommates in the dormitory and specially sent them to him. He was wearing a black down jacket, looking cold and aloof. I handed over the lunchbox. You should eat dumplings on the winter solstice. I cooked them myself. Try them quickly. He was stunned for 2 seconds before reaching out to take it. Happy winter solstice. Spencer. Spencer didn't go upstairs immediately. He was holding the lunchbox with one hand and had the other hand in his pocket. Want to take a walk? I nodded happily. Yes. Yes. We walked around the campus road and finally he sent me downstairs to my dormitory. When I mentioned that I almost was late for roll call again yesterday, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He didn't smile often on weekdays. But when he smiled, He was really charming. Suddenly, I took a step to the left towards him, stood in front of him, looked up at him with curved eyebrows and eyes. Spencer, you look really good when you smile. A person so good-looking would be great if you were my boyfriend. After saying that, I didn't expect him to answer anyway. I always ran away after flirting every time, just as I was about to put on my hat and turn around and leave. In the next second, my wrist was grabbed. Spencer lowered his eyes, and the smile at the corner of his eyebrows hadn't disappeared. He looked at me seriously, nodded. Okay. My brain froze for a few seconds. Huh? Okay for what? Be your boyfriend. 5. The handsome new student was captured by me like this. The campus forum sighed for a long time. Spencer is from the School of Economics and Management. He has always been aloof. Talks little. Doesn't like to smile. And his temper is not good either. I am an art student from the School of Fine Arts, with a beautiful and enchanting strong facial features. I shovel through various activities on campus. No matter how they are matched, they don't seem like two people who can have a good relationship. So someone specially opened a post. When will Jocelyn and Spencer break up? To be honest, I didn't seriously think about this question at the beginning. At that time, I was young and full of novelty. I lived happily one day at a time. Who knew that we talked all the way to junior year? I remember one summer vacation. I signed up for the school's teaching support team. The location of the school where we were teaching support was relatively remote. One night when I came out after taking a shower, I saw a figure standing on the slope at the school gate. It looked like the tramp that the locals mentioned. He may not have malicious intentions, but the scene of him standing in the dark and smiling at me at night still scared me a lot. When I called Spencer that night, I stammered and cried so much that I didn't fall asleep until after midnight. As a result, the next evening, Spencer appeared in front of me. He opened his arms to me. Come here. Let me hug you. He was still intern at that time, and the project in his hand was also tense. He could only stay with me for one night and had to go back early the next morning. I scolded him for being stupid and not minding the trouble of coming back and forth. He just held me tighter. If I don't come this trip, I won't be at ease. Thinking back now, in those years, Spencer really doted on me. Not to mention coming whenever I called. When he went out to have a meal with his brothers, he would always remember to pack me a midnight snack. He was covered in a lot of alcohol smell but obediently stood downstairs waiting for me. I took the midnight snack and advised him to go back and rest quickly. He reached out and hugged me, buried his head in my neck, and murmured softly, "But baby, we haven't seen each other today." He didn't even say harsh words to me. Every time it was me who got angry unilaterally. The worst time we quarreled, he just ignored me for a whole day. But at 23:59 in the evening, he still sent me a stiff goodnight on WeChat. This person is really too good. So good that I have imagined countless times that every minute and every second should be spent with him to not be a waste. So in the second semester of junior year, I followed him to the library. Spencer, let's take the postgraduate entrance examination together. I want to apply to the same school as you. If it's really not possible, we must at least try to be in the same city. He always liked to pinch my ear and gently rub it, with a smile on his lips. Okay. Probably because those years of being unrestrained were too smooth, forgetting the tricks that fate loves to play the most. On the day when the proposed admission results came out, Spencer called me, "Baby, we have both been admitted." He was really happy and even listed a bunch of follow-up graduation trip plans. I just listened carefully to every word he said and then said, "Spencer, let's break up." 6. The dream ended abruptly here. I struggled to get up and only then did I realize that I felt uncomfortable all over. I put my hand on my forehead and it turned out that I had a fever. The phone on the bedside table rang. It was the HR of the new company. "Is this Miss Min? Let's communicate about the reporting matters next Monday." I responded vaguely. After hanging up the phone, I ordered takeout to deliver medicine, and then fell asleep again. I don't know how long I slept before being woken up by a phone call again. I thought it was the delivery person. At the moment, I really didn't have the strength to get up. I opened my mouth with a hoarse voice. Sorry. Just leave the medicine at the door. Thank you. You are sick? I was really confused from the fever. I had no impression of what was said later. I fell into a muddled dream again. In the dream, I saw the ceiling of the hotel again. When I turned my head, I was stunned like that. Spencer was sitting on the sofa with his hands folded, taking a light nap with his eyes closed. There were still shallow dark circles under his eyes, just like when I woke up in the infirmary back then. After so many years, I finally dreamed of him again. I reached out my right hand to touch him, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach him, until the person on the sofa opened his eyes. His expression was not gentle, but he still got up and walked over. Are you awake? My right hand hanging in the air finally gently touched his face. I couldn't help crying. Spencer, are you finally willing to come to my dream to see me? There was a warm temperature on my hand. Spencer didn't move. He just looked at me with his black eyes. Spencer. I called his name again with a hoarse voice. Huh? This time he responded. The face close to my palm got closer. I burst into tears completely. I miss you so much. Spencer. I miss you. Spencer was stunned for a moment. Finally, he bent down and hugged me. I'm here. Probably because I was too greedy for this hug. I hugged him with all my strength. When I really woke up, the feeling of a splitting headache was gone. There was only some discomfort left after a high fever. I wanted to turn over but found that there was still a trace of warmth in my hand. Looking up along the arm that I was tightly holding, Spencer was still beside me. His voice was no longer so cold. Are you still uncomfortable? My fingers moved. I closed my eyes and said to myself, why is it still in a dream? The other person didn't move. I paused for a few seconds and gradually realized that something was wrong. The temperature in my hand didn't seem fake. I opened my eyes suddenly and fell into Spencer's black eyes. You, why are you here? I immediately struggled to get up but forgot that I was weak all over. With too much force, my head hit the headboard. With a clear, loud, objective bang. So this is the feeling of seeing stars. After a chaotic moment. It was almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The hotel manager and the doctor all withdrew one by one. I leaned on the bed and looked at Spencer standing beside me. The words that the hotel manager just said were still vivid in my mind. Mr. Sue said that you were sick and needed our assistance to open the door. We confirmed that the recent call record on his phone was the same number as your check-in registration, and he accurately recited your ID number. So we opened the door. I licked my lips and was very polite. Sorry for causing you trouble. Spencer didn't say a word, but it was obvious that he was in a bad mood. I sighed secretly. Why did everything become so coincidental just after I returned to the country? There was silence in the air for a moment. He pulled out a stool and sat down on his own, reached out and took an apple from the table and casually peeled it with a small knife. He used to be very good at peeling. Every time he could fold the peel into a rose to amuse me. This scene made my eyes start to feel sour again. I didn't want to cry in front of him, so I had to turn my head and forcefully hold back my tears. Behind me, Spencer's voice sounded. Will you leave after returning to the country? No. Do you have a boyfriend now? Do you have one? No. Then, his half sentence hung in the air. I waited for a long time, and looked back at him. Do you want to be together again? At that moment, I even wondered if I had heard wrong. He was still peeling the apple with his head down, looking as if he was patiently waiting. After a long time, I finally found my voice. Why? Spencer's hand paused. When he was about to finish peeling, he suddenly broke the peel. He casually threw the apple into the fruit plate and looked at me with a frivolous tone. Don't misunderstand. It's not a relationship. It's just that I want to change a female companion recently. You are just right. I didn't answer. Then I heard his voice again, considering our years of old friendship. Miss Min won't refuse, right? I almost forgot. This is how the young master of the Zhu family looks in front of others. A child of heaven. Surrounded by stars. No one can make him suffer. That leaving back then was all my fault. So, no matter what the situation is now, it is what I should bear. So, I nodded. Okay. If you need me, just call me. 7 After finishing the entry procedures on Monday, I also successfully got the key to my new apartment. Although it is the apartment, when I returned to the country, I only brought one suitcase. There are still many things that need to be added. So I go to the domestic products mall next to me every day after work. After arranging things bit by bit for more than half a month, the room gradually had a sense of warmth. On Saturday night, I was cooking midnight snacks in the kitchen. Suddenly, the music in my Bluetooth headset was interrupted by a ringtone. The phone was still on the sofa outside. I directly answered it. Hello. The other person didn't make a sound. I said hello again, and turned and walked out. Until the familiar voice came, come to Chao Yi. Spencer's voice was not very clear. It sounded like he had drunk alcohol. Just as I was about to speak, the phone was hung up. His alcohol tolerance is not good. Occasionally, when he drinks too much, he will have an allergic reaction. I didn't have time to think carefully. I quickly turned off the fire in the kitchen, took a coat and took a taxi to the club he mentioned. The waiter led me to the top floor private room he sent. I was standing at the door and not yet ready when the door was suddenly pulled open from inside. I really want to see who the sister that Spencer called is. The latter half of the sentence just dropped to the ground. Henry was still in the posture of opening the door and then said, "Damn." The place suddenly became quiet. He stood at the door, looked back at Spencer, then turned to look at me. I was the first to break the silence. "Long time no see." Henry stammered for a rare moment. Yes. Yes. Long time no see. Are you planning to be a door god there?" As soon as Spencer spoke, Henry immediately took a step back, let go of the doorknob, and made way for me. There were more than a dozen people in the private room. Spencer was sitting in the middle, holding a wine glass and swaying it. There was a girl in a white dress sitting on his right. I walked over in the eyes of everyone and nodded gently to a few familiar faces that I had an impression of in my memory before. Finally, I walked in front of Spencer and smiled at the girl next to him. "Hello. This is my seat. Please give way." The girl in white dress was dissatisfied. "Who are you? Do you think you can sit next to Brother Xiang just because you want to?" I met her gaze. "If I can't sit here, then no one can." There were large gasps around. The girl in white dress immediately grabbed Spencer's arm and said in a wronged way, "Brother Xiang." Only then did Spencer move his gaze from the wine glass. He pulled back his arm and left the girl aside. Looking at me, he suddenly curved his mouth. "Are you worthy?" His voice was icy. With just 3 words. It was extremely sarcastic. There were already quite a few mocking laughs around. A girl in white dress wanted to speak again, but was pulled away by Henry beside her who covered her mouth. I straightened my back and still stood gracefully. Then I seriously answered Spencer's words. I was worthy. The atmosphere in the private room was extremely stiff. Henry came over and said to ease the situation. Otherwise, Spencer suddenly put down the glass, got up, and walked straight out. I also followed and left the private room. A test driver was already waiting in the parking lot. As soon as the car started, the partition in the middle also came down. Spencer closed his eyes after getting in the car. I looked out of the window and sat motionlessly in my position. The bustling city with neon lights kept flashing outside the window. Beijing was still the same Beijing, full of prosperity but occasionally lonely. In these years, I never wanted to deliberately recall the past. I just muddled along, and thought I was doing quite well. But as soon as Spencer appeared, it was as if my mind automatically built a floating bridge. At the other end of the bridge was connected my university and our common past. Then all the memories pointed at me arrogantly. You, Jocelyn, are sorry for Spencer. Trapped in that memory. I couldn't get out and others couldn't get in either. The only person who could come in threw away the key. So I could only come to find him. Whether it's to atone for my sins or to torture myself. In any case, I have to find this person. Thinking of this, I quietly turned my head. As a result, just as I was about to look at him, my gaze was caught on the spot. Spencer didn't know when he woke up and was looking at me calmly. Keep the weekend at the end of the month free. I subconsciously replied, is there an arrangement? He hummed, I will send someone to pick you up then. I nodded to show that I understood. The car arrived at the entrance of my community first. I pushed the door and got out. Before closing the door, I hesitated for 2 seconds, and then opened the door again. I took out the yogurt from my bag and put it on the chair. You drank alcohol. Drinking this will make you feel better. This was something I specially bought when I went to the supermarket on my way out. In the past, when he drank with friends, he always liked to take me to buy yogurt of this flavor. But I know best the truth that things have changed and people have changed. If you don't drink it, just throw it away. After returning home, taking a shower, I no longer had an appetite for midnight snacks. After lying on the bed for a long time without feeling sleepy at all, I simply picked a movie and nestled on the sofa to pass the time. The phone screen lit up. It was a call from David. You are staying up late again. I smiled. Good evening. I'm watching a movie. I'll go to sleep in 10 minutes. Only then did David stop nagging. How are you feeling recently? Not bad. Have you seen him? Yes. David was silent for a while. It seemed that he sighed. In the end, he only said, remember to finish taking the last course of treatment. Take good care of yourself. After staying in the new company for a month, I gradually got used to the new work rhythm. My colleagues were also quite friendly. When I got off work on Friday, I walked out of the building with everyone. Someone suddenly proposed a weekend gathering. Most people said they were free. When they asked me, I shook my head and politely refused. Sorry. I have other arrangements this week. A sister beside me took the words and deliberately teased me. If Zhao Yu doesn't go, many of our single male colleagues will be disappointed. I smiled at her. Sister Liang, don't joke with me. If my boyfriend hears this, I will have to coax him for a long time. Some other colleagues were a little surprised when they heard this. Does Zhao Yu really have a boyfriend? I nodded. I will treat everyone to milk tea next week. On the way home, I first went to the supermarket to buy some fruits, and then picked up 2 express deliveries on the way. Only when I reached the entrance of the building did I see the familiar Bentley by the roadside. A person in a black suit came over respectfully. Hello. Miss Min. I am Assistant Fang of President Zhu. I will come to pick you up at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. First go to the styling room, and then send you to the banquet venue on time at 6 o'clock. President Zhu has a meeting tomorrow. After it ends, he will go directly to find you. I responded, okay. Do I need to prepare anything? No need. The dress and jewelry will be prepared by the styling room. May I ask what banquet it is? It's a private gathering. It's organized by young Master He. Okay. Thank you. 9 Henry is Spencer's childhood friend and a typical representative of a playboy. Every time Spencer was delayed by other things, it was him who ran errands to my dormitory building. When we were in a relationship, he always liked to tease Spencer with me. Oh. Since there is Sister Min. A number of times Spencer has smiled with that poker face is almost equal to the total number I've seen in the past 20 years. On the day of our breakup, he also called me alone. Sister Min, there is nothing that the two of you can't get over. Don't be so heartless. Talk properly. I interrupted his words. Brother Henry, we can only go this far. In the future, please take care of him more. My breakup with Spencer was not decent. Spencer was participating in a closed training for a competition at that time. I was summoned home temporarily. We didn't contact each other for more than half a month, until the day when the proposed admission results for postgraduate entrance examination came out. He specially took a leave and called me. His smile was still on his face. But the news that I wanted to break up came right in front of him. Spencer only asked why once on the phone at that time. I said heartlessly, "Of course it's because I'm tired of playing and don't want to continue anymore." "So these years, you were just playing with me?" I deliberately taunted. "Spencer, you didn't take it seriously, did you?" He took 2 deep breaths, and was still holding back his temper. "Talk properly." He had said before that no matter what problems we had, he was willing to solve them. But the premise was not to joke about breaking up casually. So that was also the first time I mentioned breaking up. "Forgot to tell you. I was going to go abroad from the beginning. I already got the offer. But I thought anyway I'll accompany you. So I just took the exam casually." "Who knew I really got admitted?" Spencer asked. "I can also go abroad." "Why?" I couldn't help laughing. "Why didn't I tell you?" "Of course it's because I don't want to be with you anymore. At first, I just chased you because you were good looking. And then I caught you." Spencer's voice had completely cooled down. "Jocelyn, we have been in love for almost 4 years. Not for days. You are so good to me. I'm just too lazy to break up." Too lazy to break up? Among the closest people, they always know where to poke the deepest and most painful needle. That's right. The people who chase me around are not as tall as you, not as handsome as you, and not as rich as you. It's better to be with you. But now I'm tired of it and don't want to be in a relationship anymore. This postgraduate entrance examination is also taken for you. But now I'm going abroad. He didn't speak. I raised my head, all my emotions, and pretended not to care and said, "Spencer, you won't disagree with breaking up, will you?" Spencer is such a proud person. He was so angry that he hung up the phone on the spot. "Jocelyn, don't regret it." I knew he was so angry that he was dizzy. I also knew that after he calmed down, he would call me again that night. I even knew that he must be waiting for the end of the competition and preparing to go back to school to talk to me in person. But it was too late. After that call ended, I left. I didn't go to study for the postgraduate degree that we had worked hard to get into together. I didn't even go back to school. I gave up my dormitory and graduation. All contact methods were cancelled overnight. I left cleanly. I didn't leave him any way out. The banquet was held in a luxurious villa in the suburbs. The entrance was covered with flowers. There were balloons hanging on the lawn. Next to it was an open-air swimming pool. The atmosphere was very lively. Assistant Fang sent me there and then whispered a few words to Henry before leaving. Henry's attitude towards me was neither cold nor warm. "Spencer will be delayed for a while. Shall I arrange a room for you to rest?" "It's okay. You're busy. I'll just find a seat and sit for a while." He responded and was called away by someone. I sat down in the rest area next to the swimming pool and played Candy Crush idly. "Miss, may I buy you a drink?" A strange face appeared in front of me, smiling with an oily look. I refused bluntly. "Sorry. I'm allergic to alcohol." The other person was about to speak, when he was interrupted by a sharp female voice from beside him. "Don't be angry. Young Master Liang. This is the once famous beauty queen of the School of Fine Arts of Jing University." Immediately after, a large group of beautiful women surrounded me. The finger I was using to play the game paused. I looked up. Luna was wearing a pink princess dress and was surrounded by a group of followers in the middle. I didn't feel much fluctuation in my heart. After showing up at the KEV that day, I thought of this day. Back then when I was with Spencer, it was known to everyone. After repairing by his side after 3 years, naturally, all kinds of people will also come sniffing. Luna is undoubtedly the one who makes the most noise and is also the most annoying one. She and Spencer were high school classmates. I heard that she took the entrance examination of Jing University back then just for him. She chased after him for several years. But I got there first. especially when she indirectly scolded me for relying on Spencer's liking and acting as a bully under his influence. I immediately turned to Spencer and acted coquettify and complained, deliberately making a fuss and confirming the reputation of acting as a bully on the spot. Then she never appeared in any place I went to since then. Naturally, we dislike each other. I was too lazy to argue with her, and ignored her, continuing to play Candy Crush. Since I didn't respond, naturally there were people around who gave her a way out. I thought, who was so arrogant? It's just an ex-girlfriend. Why? Are you coming back to cling to President Zoo now? But, Miss Min, times have changed. Being a mistress is not allowed. At this point, I put away my phone, looked up and stared at the girl who spoke last. What did you say? She puffed out her chest as if she had someone backing her up. Sister Liu Yao and brother Sign's families are already discussing marriage. I kindly advise you not to be a mistress knowingly. Luna was like a proud peacock. The look in her eyes when she looked at me was full of pride. She said condescending, Miss Min, please be sure to attend the wedding of me and brother Siam. I stood up and said inferiorly to her, oh, let Spencer tell me. After saying that, I was about to walk out. Before I took 2 steps, my wrist was suddenly hit. There was a sharp pain and my phone fell into the swimming pool just like that. Oh, I'm really sorry. Otherwise, I'll compensate you with a mobile phone. Get lost. I couldn't care about the pain in my wrist. I quickly pushed aside the people beside me and jumped into the swimming pool. I frantically searched for my phone in the water. 11. The commotion was so great that people at the banquet all gathered around. I heard Henry's angry voice. What the hell are you guys making a fuss about? Some people were explaining, and some were watching the excitement. I searched around but didn't find anything. I became even more anxious. I was only half good at swimming, and the swimming pool was relatively deep. I gradually lost strength. With a plop, a figure beside me swam towards me. Spencer held me and got out of the water. I grabbed his hand and was so anxious that I was about to cry. Spencer. My phone. Please help me find my phone. He took a towel and covered me, gently coaxing me. Okay. Don't be anxious. Wait here. I'll help you find your phone. He went into the water alone. No one in the audience spoke or dared to move, until he surfaced with a mobile phone and swam towards me. He looked at me. His eyebrows and eyes were gentle, and there was only me in his eyes. I found it. I threw myself at him. I opened the phone case. The only Polaroid photo inside was still wet. At that moment, the last string in my brain snap broke. My nose turned sour. Spencer. Our group photo is gone. Spencer was all wet. And so was I. But just like that, in front of everyone, he gently kissed away my tears. It won't be gone. Leave it to me. I'll find a way. Henry came over and handed over a towel. Spencer didn't take it. He stood up and, like holding a child, picked me up and walked towards the villa beside. When passing by Luna, Spencer stopped for 2 seconds and said coldly, the Zoo family can't make decisions for me. Whoever promised to marry you, you go find whoever. Luna originally wanted to reach out and say something, but was pulled aside by Henry. He gritted his teeth and said, if you go up there at this time, you are courting death. Don't blame me for not warning you. The discussions behind gradually faded away. Spencer carried me up to the bedroom on the 2nd floor and finally put me on the wash stand. The doctor will come soon. I'll let someone come in and change you into clean clothes first. I pinched the corner of my skirt, and didn't dare to look into his eyes. No. No need. I can do it myself. He thought for a moment and laughed in an improper way. His tone was the same as in memory. You can change by yourself. But then I have to watch beside. I raised my eyebrows and was about to glare at him, but he covered my eyes. There was a warm touch on my lips. He just pecked lightly and then backed away. Be good. Otherwise, I will really want to kill those people downstairs. I shrank my neck. Oh. After the doctor applied medicine to my wrist, Spencer reached out and covered me with a quilt. Take a nap first. When you wake up, I'll take you back. I held his little finger of his right hand and looked at him carefully. Will you be here all the time? Yes. I curved the corners of my mouth. Okay. Then I'll sleep for a while. Those dreams that had haunted me for many years seemed to disappear. I rarely had a good sleep. When I woke up again, the room was completely dark. My mind wasn't fully awake yet. For a moment, I couldn't tell what time it was. I subconsciously shouted, "Spencer, I'm here." He turned on the wall lamp and was sitting by the bed, responding and gently rubbing my wrist with his right hand. In the first year when I arrived in the United States, I woke up countless times calling his name, but the room was always empty. Just now, I was still half asleep and shouted out following my subconscious. But this time, he was really here. I blinked slowly and finally confirmed this person, once again, came to my side. 12 When Spencer took me downstairs, the villa had been cleared. Henry was originally sitting in the living room. When he heard the footsteps, he immediately stood up and apologized to me. Are you okay? I smiled. I'm fine. It's already okay. This is my fault for not taking good care of you. Luna and a few others took advantage. I will definitely give you an explanation. As he spoke, he glanced at Spencer beside him. His action reminded me of college all of a sudden. At that time, a group of their brothers always liked to joke. It's nothing to offend Spencer. But if you offend Jocelyn, it will definitely be very bad. Because Spencer is not very fussy. For unimportant things, he doesn't even give a glance. He is only serious about things related to me. Last time at the KEV, his words, "Are you worthy?" probably gave some signals to the people around. I was already a thing of the past. So Luna and her group dared to show off. But today's situation is back to the time when he protected me. If Spencer is really angry, people around will inevitably be affected. Henry is the one who has the most say. My smile had more genuine feelings. I looked at him seriously. Brother Henry. It's not necessary. I caused you trouble. It's not a big deal. Then I pulled Spencer's sleeve. He looked down at me. I immediately gave him a look. Look how guilty Henry is. Say something quickly. Only then did he look at Henry and then directly kicked him. The explanation should be for me. What's it to do with you? Henry instantly became happy. Spencer led me to the dining room. Where's dinner? Oh. I'll let people serve the dishes now. After finishing the meal, Spencer was ready to take me back. When he went to drive the car, Henry and I were left standing at the door waiting. Sister Min. Just now at the dinner table, Henry had a few drinks alone. His fair face was still flushed. It seemed that he was drunk. He leaned against the door, called my name, and then stopped. I had to respond. Brother Henry. What's wrong? Henry suddenly smiled brightly. A very happy smile. Thank you for coming back. I'm happy for Spencer. Really. 13 When Spencer drives by himself, he usually doesn't talk much. I secretly glanced at him a few times and then casually withdrew my gaze. In my head, Henry's words kept ringing. You left too heartlessly back then. He waited all night downstairs your dormitory. In the end, he only got the news that you had gone abroad. Later, when his family found out about your breakup, they took him back forcibly. When he couldn't contact you and was restricted in freedom, it was the first time he bowed his head to his family. He said he would just go to your house and take a look and come back after one look. I'm a big man. At that time, I almost couldn't hold back. That's Spencer who has been proud since childhood. But his family still didn't let him go out. In the end, I went on his behalf. I met your parents and got the reply that you did go abroad to study. Since then, he has never mentioned your name again. He obeyed his family's arrangements and entered the company after graduation. He has lived like a ascetic these years. Except for work. It's still work. His family urged him all day long. But he just ignored them. Even when he was tricked onto a blind date, he could stand up and leave in a huff. We can all see that he is still stubbornly waiting for you. It's not possible to say that none of us blamed you. To some extent, we did blame you. But you are back. Spencer is really back to his old state again. We watched you to come all the way. If you really take me as your elder brother, listen to my advice. Let the past be the past. Be together well. There aren't many 3 years that can withstand your. I knew he had a hard time these years. But hearing it in reality was completely different from imagining it. Spencer has always been an introverted person. Just what Henry knows is like this. Then when he is alone, what exactly did he endure? I began to feel short of breath. I had to breathe in small mouthfuls. The position of my heart only felt a throbbing pain back and forth. What's wrong? Spencer pulled the car over and turned to ask me. I turned my face to look out of the window. My nasal voice was a bit heavy. Nothing. I'm a bit sleepy again. He suddenly reached out and pinched my chin, turned me around, and deliberately bent down, getting very close to my face. Tell me, what's wrong? Do you feel wronged today? I simply nodded along with his meaning, yes. Spencer rubbed my face with his thumb. I'm sorry. I was late. I promise there won't be such a situation again. After saying that, he seemed to casually add, I have nothing to do with Luna. You don't have to care about her. I felt that the emotions I had for a long time were about to break through again. He is clearly still that teenager who doesn't want me to have the slightest misunderstanding even if we have a fight. He blinked at me. In a conciliatory tone, don't be wronged. I'll take you to eat delicious food tomorrow. In an instant, the suppressed emotion for a long time was released. Spencer. I regretted it. He was stunned. I threw myself at him and put my arms around his nape. I buried my head in his collarbone. Tears fell one by one, landing hotly on his skin. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He gently stroked my head and listened to me cry while softly coaxing me. It's all in the past. On that night, Spencer sent me home, made a cup of milk to help me sleep, and left after I fell asleep. Before leaving, he also ordered breakfast for me early the next morning, by the way. Then he started chatting with me intermittently on WeChat. Sue, good morning. Sue, lunch. A photo. I got up in an orderly manner, then went to work, got off work, and followed his rhythm. Wan you. Good morning. Wan you. The president eats better than an ordinary worker. A photo of takeout. Then after half an hour, he replied coldly with a N. I didn't reply anymore. I took advantage of the remaining time and quickly took a nap. When I woke up from my nap and was about to go to the pantry to make a cup of coffee, the front desk clerk urgently called for my takeout. I walked over in confusion. The takeout delivery guy came up. Are you Miss Min? I nodded. The other party handed me a beautiful bouquet of cappuccino roses. Then he moved aside and pointed to a lot of desserts and milk tea on the cabinet. Finally, the takeout delivery guy's voice was very loud. Mr. Sue said. Wish you a happy day. Just waking up from a nap and before work started. Colleagues who passed by one after another made a fuss. I quickly asked someone to distribute the milk tea and desserts in the office. Finally, holding the flowers, I returned to my workstation amid a lot of teasing. Wan you. Meow 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 zoo. Wan you. Why is there such a big commotion all of a sudden? There are flowers and afternoon tea. Sue, don't you like it? Wan you. No. The flowers are very beautiful. Everyone said that the desserts and milk tea are very delicious. Sue, take a picture of the flowers and let me see. I casually placed the flowers by the window and took a picture and sent it over. Sue, the flowers are so. The person is beautiful. Looking carefully, it turned out that my shadow was reflected in the window. This is from a long distance away. Suddenly, my face flushed and my ears were a little hot. After pausing for a few seconds, I picked up my phone again and pretended to be nonchalant and replied. 1-1 Thank you for the afternoon tea. Go and get busy. As a result, it seemed that President Sue was extremely free today, and replied basically instantly. Sue, just a verbal thank you? 1-1 Otherwise? Sue, how can you let others think of a thank you gift? 1-1 Treat you to a meal? Sue, okay. I was about to ask him if there was any restaurant he wanted to go to. His next message followed immediately. Sue, I want to eat what you cook. I always thought that the 3-year blank time was too long. We all needed to adapt and match with each other now. But it seems that as long as I meet this person, these temporary fears, confusions, and worries seem to disappear. When I am with him, I feel very at ease. Spencer still seems to be that Spencer. Spencer who had the best relationship with me in my impression. I silently felt the happiness at this moment for a while, and then secretly took a break again. 1-1 Okay. It depends on your time. Sue, Friday. 15 The happy mood remained from Monday to Friday. I clocked out on time. While I was still thinking about whether to add a vegetarian soup, I looked up and saw Luna appear at the company entrance. I walked over and asked calmly. Looking for me? Only when I got closer did I find that she had lost a lot of weight. She was completely different from the high and mighty little princess a week ago. She kept staring at me and didn't say a word. After waiting for a long time and losing patience, just as I was about to leave, she stopped me again. Luna looked very listless and there was only darkness in her eyes. I came to apologize to you. Last time when I made you fall into the water, it was my fault. Including the hurtful words my friends said to you. I also apologized to you on their behalf. I really heard genuine apology from her tone, and couldn't help looking at her. Okay. I accept. But she didn't mean to leave yet. I also stood where I was and waited for her remaining words. The so-called engagement is just a joke made when the two families chatted before. If possible, please tell Spencer not to target our family's companies anymore. Of course. If you don't want to. It doesn't matter. I nodded. Okay. I will tell him. She suddenly smiled and revealed her original beautiful dimples. Jocelyn. Sometimes I envy you. I have loved him for 10 years. But it can't compare to the moment you appeared. I also want to let myself go. This city is full of memories related to him. So I am going to stay in the South for 2 years. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Finally, I just thought of one sentence. Wish you all the best. As soon as the words fell, my phone rang. It was Spencer's call. Luna motioned for me to answer the phone, and then got back into the car. She rolled down the car window and waved. Goodbye, Jocelyn. I also waved. Goodbye, Luna. Then the call was connected. Spencer asked where I was. I said I just got off work. He said he would arrive in 5 minutes and asked me to stand where I was and wait. That night, I made 3 dishes and 1 soup. Spencer gave me a lot of face and finished clearing the plate. After the meal, he volunteered to wash the dishes. I went to the balcony to take care of the potted plants and greenery. After tidying up everything, I turned on the projector and picked an old movie. The lights in the room were all turned off. He sat on my right. In fact, we weren't very close, but I felt his presence all around me. Obviously, it was a movie I liked, but I couldn't watch it at all. Every time I breathed, it seemed that the person next to me was all I could think about. Just when I felt my breathing getting more and more tense, David's call broke all the ambiguity. Instinctively, I wanted to take the phone to the balcony, but because I was too nervous and forgot to turn on the light. As soon as I stood up, my calf hit the coffee table. Spencer immediately supported me. In the chaos, the finger that accidentally pressed the answer button also stopped on the screen. David was impatient, and didn't give me a chance to speak. I just saw your email. Although you said that every day with him is very happy, I still advise you to take the medicine for the last course on time. If possible. I even suggest that you come back for re-examination irregularly. My belated reflex arc finally came to my senses. I immediately interrupted his words. Okay. Dave. Sorry. I have something to do now. I'll call you later. Then I quickly hung up the phone. 16 Spencer turned on the light and the room was brightly lit. Before I could think of how to explain this call, he pressed me back on the sofa first. Where are the medicines at home? Without thinking, I pointed to the location of the medicine box. There. He had long legs and walked over in 3 or 2 steps. Then at the moment he opened the medicine box, my mind suddenly came alive again. Wait, but it was too late to stop him. Spencer had already seen everything, including the antidepressants for the last course that David mentioned. Spencer has a friend who is a psychologist. He knew these kinds of medicines earlier than I did. I sat on the sofa, feeling a chill down my spine. For a moment, I lost the ability to organize my words, and he just stood there with his back to me, motionless. After a long time, he took the medicine box and came back, kneeling in front of me. He lowered his head and silently applied the swelling-reducing medicine on my calf. After applying the medicine, he put the medicine back as it was. Finally, he slowly picked up the pile of medicine bottles next to it. Spencer still didn't raise his head. After a long time, he spoke. He said, "I'm sorry. For so long after you came back, I only cared about myself and forgot to ask. In these years, did you also suffer a lot?" I slid down the sofa and sat directly on the carpet. I held his hand holding the medicine bottle. I lowered my head to look for his eyes and looked at his already red eyes seriously. I held his face and said softly, "Spencer, I just had a minor illness, but I am already better." Then I repeated, "I really came back to find you after I got better." Tears instantly filled those beautiful eyes that I deeply loved. He closed his eyes. Tears fell from the corners of his eyes and dropped onto the back of my hand, sliding down hotly. He didn't speak and just closed his eyes and let the tears flow. This was the first time I saw Spencer cry. While I was in a panic and wiping his tears, I also thought about explaining quickly, "It's not serious. Really. I didn't suffer much either. I just adjusted my state for a while. The doctor said that I recovered very well. Really. It's not that I don't tell you. As long as I see you, I am very happy and I can't even think of this matter." He hugged me tightly and buried his head in my hair. "Still not willing to tell me why you broke up back then?" 17 On the second day when Spencer participated in the closed training, I received a call from home and hurried back. My parents' business investments offered a setback. The competitors made malicious threats. Creditors came to the door frequently. Crises arose everywhere. They put all the procedures for going abroad in front of me. "Mom and Dad have arranged everything for you. Go abroad and study for a few years. Take care of yourself. After this turmoil passes, Mom and Dad will come to pick you up." When I was a child, I was kidnapped by their business rivals. Although I was rescued in time, I still saw a psychologist for more than half a year. The time for the plane ticket to go abroad is next week. They were really scared and worried. I understand. But it's not that I don't want to go out. I just thought of Spencer for a moment. My re-examination performance was quite good, coupled with my leading score in the preliminary examination. I was really about to go to the same school as Spencer. It was really just a little bit short. Dad patted my shoulder and was helpless. "If it wasn't an emergency, we wouldn't send you out so hastily. We also know about your matter with Xiaozu. But Xiaozu's grandfather's family is in politics. If our family's mess really has something to do with his family, it will cause a big trouble for them. It's not appropriate. Girl, listen to Dad. Break up with him before going abroad." But clearly we had just said that we would meet our parents after graduation. I knew Spencer too well. If he knew everything, he would not agree to break up. But why should I let him wait for me in China? I sat there, neither nodding nor shaking my head. However, before I could react, a group of uninvited guests came to my house that night. They were creditors who came to ask for debts. In the chaos, I was pushed down the stairs. My wrist was hit hard on the floor, and there was a lot of blood. When I woke up in the hospital the next day, the doctor stood in front of the hospital bed and said a bunch of professional terms. I only asked one sentence: "Can my hand still draw?" He was silent for a long time and shook his head with a sigh. I closed my eyes but couldn't even cry. Probably this is fate. I have loved painting for 10 years, and can't continue anymore. The teenager I love the most also has no future. The dream is gone. Love is also gone. No one told me what to do. The only thing I can do is look at my parents, who keep crying and apologizing and begging me to go abroad. Finally, I responded, "Okay. I break up. I go abroad. You also have to take care of yourself." Since then, there has been a small scar on my right wrist. The major for studying abroad quickly changed from fine arts to management. They originally said they would accompany me back to school to pack up my things. I refused by myself. Deal with the things at school later as you see fit. I won't go back. Back in the world with Spencer. I couldn't bear to leave. On the morning of going abroad, I stood at the airport holding my suitcase and received Spencer's call after half a month. He couldn't hide his happiness. "Baby, we have both been admitted." Then I heard my own indifferent voice. "Spencer, let's break up. I don't think love is about letting go. I just don't want someone as glorious as him to sink with me. Such a good person like him should always live in enthusiasm." 18 As soon as I arrived abroad, I got sick. I had repeated fevers every 2 or 3 days. I couldn't sleep all night and couldn't eat anything. And the housekeeper found many doctors. In the end, when there was really no other way, and she was about to call my family, I stopped her in time. "Aunt Xiong, don't tell my family. My parents are also extremely busy. I'm probably not used to the local environment. I'll be fine in a couple of days." Then I started to force myself to eat. I drank bowls after bowls of nauseating traditional Chinese medicine. I lost almost 10 pounds in about a month. Later, I started to enter school alone, attend classes, do homework, and study. I didn't make friends or have social activities. Sometimes I didn't even speak all day. I spent the first year like this. Later, the family business gradually returned to normal. Mom asked me if I wanted to go back to China to have a look. But at that time, I was sitting opposite the psychologist and heard him say, "Sorry, dear. This is depression." Only then did I realize that my sleepless nights, low mood, and crying for no reason during this period were actually problems with my mental state. After Mom and Dad knew about this, they immediately went abroad and stayed with me for a while. They found the most famous psychological clinic there. David became my attending doctor. During the first psychological treatment, David asked me what I wanted to do after returning to China. At that moment, I closed my eyes. All I could think about was Spencer. I said, "I want to see someone. No matter if he has a new life or not. I still want to go back and see him. But I want to stand in front of him healthily." Later, under David's suggestion, I got a dog. Gradually, I had a few friends around me who could talk. I started to truly live. My emotions became more and more stable. Everything got better again. As the graduation ceremony ended, I also successfully got an offer from China. David took my dog back to his home. He put his hands together and smiled at me. "God bless. Good luck to you." Things that seemed earth-shattering at that time were just a few sentences of the past. There was a long silence in the living room. Spencer held me very tightly, seemingly using all his strength. We were like two lonely and vulnerable little monsters, warming each other. Sitting beside him, I resonated with all the pain and discomfort in his heart. I gently patted his back and comforted him softly. "Spencer, let's not be uncomfortable anymore. Okay?" His voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry." I tried to smile and put my tone as light as possible. "I don't want to talk about these things because I was worried it would be like this." "Don't feel sorry. It's all in the past. After a long while, Spencer slowly raised his head. He held my face and kissed me again and again as if I were a precious treasure. Then he looked into my eyes and said solemnly, "Jocelyn, I love you. What I mean is not just at this moment. It also includes every day in the past 3 years." 19 Spencer started to send me to work and pick me up from work every day. Occasionally, if he had work engagements and couldn't come, he would ask his assistant to send me his schedule in advance. He would also send me a few messages in between. "Sue, the steamed fish in this place is not bad. I'll bring you here next time. Sue, these people keep drinking endlessly. Annoying." I could feel that he was trying hard to find the us who were passionately in love in the past. Coincidentally, I wanted the same. 1 You. Be good. Remember to make a cup of honey water when you get home. Spencer didn't reply. Instead, after half an hour, he directly appeared at the door of my apartment. He had his coat hanging on his arm. His tie was a bit loose. He smelled strongly of alcohol but still spoke to me righteously. "I came to drink honey water." I pulled him in. I made water for him in the kitchen, and handed it to him. I deliberately asked him, "I told you to drink it at home. Why did you come here?" He drank half a cup, probably still feeling uncomfortable. He directly took off his tie and loosened the buttons of his shirt. The whole person leaned towards me as if he had no bones. "But only where you are is home," he had mentioned once before asking me to move in with him, but I refused on the spot. Later, we didn't talk about this topic again. I thought he had given up, but it turned out that he just changed his method. He started to find ways to stay overnight at my apartment. But he had to take a detour to pick me up and drop me off every day. The assistant always came to bring clothes in the early morning. It was really a hassle. Thinking of this, I really felt a little sorry. "Otherwise, you don't have to send me every day." As soon as Spencer heard this, he immediately looked up and frowned. "No. I miss you very much every day. I forgot that you can't reason with a drunk person." Just when I was about to give up this topic, I heard his voice again. "Don't you miss me?" That look seemed to demand an answer. I had to follow his meaning. Yes. He was unhappy again. His tone was a bit annoyed. "You're lying. If you miss me too, why don't you agree to move to my place?" This little calculation was so loud that the whole living room could hear it. I even suspected that this person was pretending to be drunk. "Spencer, we've only been together for a month. It's too soon." He immediately withdrew his hand from my waist. He sat up straight. His eyes were blurred but his expression was serious. "No. I didn't agree to break up back then. We have clearly been in love for many years." After saying this, he fell backward and fell asleep leaning against the sofa. I was stunned for 2 seconds and then couldn't help laughing. In this way, we started living together. We go to work together, go shopping in the supermarket together, take a walk after meals together, and waste time together. We start to spend every minute and second of the rest of our lives together. 20 On Spencer's birthday, Henry and his brothers organized a gathering at Chaoyi. I happened to come back from a business trip that day. The time when the plane landed was a bit late, so I asked him to go there first. When I got home, I changed into a white dress, remembering that there was a necklace that was very suitable. I found it after searching for a long time in the bottom cabinet. Just as I was about to close the cabinet door after putting on the necklace, I saw a black box out of the corner of my eye. It seemed to have been placed there for a long time. Out of curiosity, I took it out and opened the box. Then I was stunned. There was a stack of air tickets inside. The destinations were all the same place, the city where I had been for the past 3 years. Spencer had looked for me again and again. He went there every time but never saw me. This belated fact caught me off guard. I stood there and couldn't calm down for a long time. Until the phone rang in the living room. Spencer asked on the other end if he should come to pick me up. I came to my senses. No need. I'm already on the way. Then I took out a box from my suitcase and stuffed it into my bag before hurriedly going out. When I reached the door of the private room, I was about to push the door open when I heard the voices inside. Henry asked, "But what if she doesn't come back?" My movement stopped abruptly with this sentence. After a few seconds of silence, Spencer spoke. He should have said it with a smile. He said, "There is no such possibility. A little white-eyed wolf won't be loved for nothing." I stood outside the door and cried again inconsolably. 21 After reapplying my makeup, I pushed the door open and walked in. Spencer was sitting in the middle of the sofa, exuding laziness all over. He looked up and saw me. He sat up a bit more properly. His eyes lit up for a moment and he crooked his index finger at me. "Come here." People around were making a fuss. The background music had already stopped. I walked towards him step by step. The fist-8 hem swayed in a beautiful arc. When there was still a little distance left before reaching him, I stopped. Then I took out a small blue velvet box from my bag. When I opened the box, there were 2 plain gold wedding bands lying inside. In the next second, I called his name, "Spencer." Everyone started exclaiming. Spencer froze for a moment. "Marry me." "Okay." The screams around pierced through the entire floor. Spencer looked at the ring, and then looked at me again. Suddenly, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In an instant when he got up, he put his arm around my waist and hugged me tightly. A passionate kiss fell on my earlobe. He took the ring from my hand. His voice was deep. "Proposing is my thing." In the next second, he knelt on one knee. Those beautiful eyes were filled with my figure. In silence, his eyes gradually reddened. Someone around joked, "Spencer won't be moved to tears, will he?" Spencer looked up and sniffed, looking very arrogant. Who the hell would cry when proposing? Then he looked at my eyes seriously again. My big boy, holding my hand, said to me with tears in his eyes, "Jocelyn, be my bride. I'll buy you the most beautiful wedding dress in the world." I burst into tears and laughed. I deliberately questioned, "Just buy a wedding dress?" Spencer also laughed. The mole at the corner of his eye slightly lifted. "As long as you want it. As long as I have it." I reached out and waved. "Then please hand in President Sue's salary card." Spencer directly put the ring on my right ring finger and got up and wrapped around me. I can hand myself in along with it. All the sounds around were drowned in his affectionate kiss. Love is the ultimate weapon. Across 3 years, penetrating our hearts. This time, I will hold you tightly. 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 Hold you